Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from small-town true crime podcasts, mountain road amnesia trails, and broadcast microphone surveillance loops, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of coastal Gothic isolation, weaponized historical massacre psychological thriller deployment loops, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered collection of raw, live-in health caregiver and paralyzed suspect assets running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a scorched, high-density cliffside manor layout, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating typewriter-narrated confession extraction matrix, with the only one left, the exceptional, pulse-pounding contemporary thriller and comprehensive historical deception compendium, engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking domestic secrets, razor-sharp narrative traps, and high-velocity structural friction, Riley Sager. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where an endangered primary caregiving asset running an unyielding truth extraction loop, a calculating manipulative shadow network of wealthy decaying estate dynasts and gaslighting routines, and an absolute defense against an encroaching ocean-confined cliffside containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative journeys where endangered, hyper-observant home health protagonists must navigate an absolute maze of rigged character perspectives, corrupt typewriter text trails, and a deadly ring of active personal deadline frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised domestic ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep psychological profiling, calculated cliff-top balcony boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing highly advanced multi-decade erasure mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced Gothic gaslighting incubator, tracking a paralyzed massacre suspect who deploys advanced textual analysis and clandestine household dossiers to systematically forge a seemingly innocent facade before crossing a terminal exposure milestone, diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Sager completely dominates the high-precision, unreliable narrator jeopardy meets suffocating narrative erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating blank-page paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like Gillian Flynn, Lucy Foley, B.A. Paris, and Shirley Jackson, while treating realistic baseline terminology logistics, complex dark possessive loyalty arcs, and protective high-density isolation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creative asset, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total loss of occupational safety networks, absolute structural liquidation locks, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a cutthroat coastal social matrix. Behind our protagonist Kit McDear's rigorous daily footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried survival instincts, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt plot outline deviation sequence, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from a network of internal distraction forces, parsing complex behavioral shifts in her daily clinical interaction loops, and shielding her vulnerable personal sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite family offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. While sorting through a series of routine patient care logs, our primary asset registers a total security breach when her paralyzed client's psychological onboarding sequence initializes an irregular descent into active massacre confession logs, systematically tracking hidden midnight hallway movements, forbidden cliffside architectural coordinates, and unvetted historical homicide associations, forcing her into a proximity tracking matrix with an oncoming narrative resolution. Behind the wealthy estate world's pristine, smooth aesthetic facade and elite behavioral mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal tier against a ticking clock timeline, the unauthorized discovery of missing historical truth templates, hidden intimate motivations, and altered typographic tracking templates reveals that her entire leisure sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine household courtesy and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. She is thrust directly into an active, invisible war behind closed manor doors, where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her survival data stream and
and execute her complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their social and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large family living spaces, dark cliffside pathways, and private fortified master suites into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve her focus before her adversary's relentless, calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through precise execution guidelines from initial 1983 crime assembly to final structural manuscript release loops, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via digital distraction maneuvers, and persistent dominance to shatter her defense, only to realize her hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of personal legal journals, every silent choice to stand off against an electronic apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Riley Sager reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial Week 1 ambush or managing an invasive historical disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and absolute structural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building creative survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes midstream point-of-view shifts switches the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a high-velocity Gothic psychological, caregiver captivity noir, historical family massacre mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unreliable narrator lie triggers a fatal deadline showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Sager writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate fallout, and the distinct, subtle scent of machine ink, salt spray, old decaying plaster, smartphone glare, cold sweat, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary instructional marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic, modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. The only one left is the definitive, pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputtable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the